Hello, everybody, and good evening. Welcome to Unbiased America Live. We are here with a special guest who I will introduce last after I introduce the non-important people. We have Kevin there, who is wearing, it looks like a pullover fleece from 1999 with a T-shirt underneath it. He also
I haven't changed the T-shirt in 3 days, actually.
he has the American flag backdrop there, as he should, being a member of the 1%. I'm sure he's very proud of his patriarchal, oppressing country.
I'm gonna press the hell out of you.
Yep, we have in the middle spot there, and I'm sure it's the same on your screen, we have Grant Phillips of the Modern Libertarian, and we are capitalists. I should mention Kevin Ryan, also of Unbiased America. Grant has a little piece coming out tomorrow. He mentioned it earlier on. Where are you going to put that out on, Grant?
It'll be on the Pan Am Post tomorrow.
Pan Am? Like, I thought that was an airline that went out of business
No,
many years ago.
it's actually, I'm very connected with my Hispanic brothers down south, so it's going to be on the Pan Am Post. It's their Freedom magazine.
Oh, okay, very cool. Good for you. No one will read it, so that's also awesome.
I have one coming out. I just want to talk about probably after the show. It's going to be about an analysis of what's going to happen at the convention. It's coming out on the Eastern Airlines website right after the show.
Okay.
Yeah.
Also, we have our special guest, Antonia Okafor, who is the Southwest Director for Students for Concealed Carry. I'm glad I got through that. I was a bit of a tongue twister, but I nailed it. Antonia, can you give me a little background on what the Students for Concealed Carry is?
Oh, okay. So it's a national organization, student-led, grassroots organization that basically our sole purpose is to get concealed carry on as many campuses as possible in the United States.
Okay. And are you a student still?
I'm a grad student, yes.
Okay. Where do you currently go to school?
University of Texas at Dallas.
So you're trying to get, people to have the right to carry on campus?
Yes, I am.
Okay. And how's that going? I mean, what resistance are you getting?
Well, particularly, you would think, it's Texas and, with our Second Amendment values and everything, and et cetera, that it'd be easy. But it's actually a big battle here in Texas, and we just got it passed, the law passed last year, and it's going to be implemented August of this year. And in between, there are a lot of universities that don't like it, and so we're trying to fight against those universities right now.
Well, to be fair, the universities there in Texas aren't necessarily these right-wing bastions like you would figure the rest of Texas is. I mean, am I wrong?
No, you're very right. I mean, with the exception of A&M, A&M has been really pretty conservative and campus carry friendly. It's just UT Austin, particularly, that.
Oh yeah, big time. What about TCU?
Oh, TCU was right off the bat like, no, we're not going to have campus.
Really?
Yeah, first to opt out. Private schools get to opt out of the law, so they were the first one to say, no, thank you.
I don't have a problem with these private universities. You want to do that, that's fine. Go right ahead. I just won't go there. You know what I mean?
Exactly. I agree. We agree with that.
Let the market. Let the market determine.
How prevalent is concealed carry on university campuses?
In general, it's like nationwide.
Yeah.
Right now, so Texas is actually the 8th state to have campus carry in the form that we have it, which meaning that all public universities have to have some form of it. 23 states currently have said that it's up to the buildings, it's up to the university, but most schools will say no. So it's a pretty modern thing right now.
That's interesting. So, so what's the law as of now from a constitutional standpoint? Can state schools say that they will disallow concealed carry permits on campus, legally speaking?
Legally, it's state by state. So for Texas, in August of 2016 of this year, it's going to be illegal for a public university to say, no, you can't have campus carry. Now, where they have it is a different matter, and that's what we're fighting against right now.
Okay, I see. And what got you into these students for concealed carry? It's a very specific thing to get into, as opposed to doing broader, engaging in broader topics like YAL or SFL. What got you, specifically into, concealed carry?
Yeah, so I guess it's the whole, typical cliche female, answer. Like I got angry and I got into politics, right?
Mhm.
So I basically was trying to recruit for my conservative female organization called Network of Enlightened Women on campus.
What's
And
it called? I'm sorry, say that again.
Network of Enlightened Women.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, so trying to recruit for that, and we're trying to. I mean, a hot topic was campus carry, and we were trying to gauge the feel, the temperature of our university, our campus, by talking to people. And the campus police stopped us 2 hours in and said, you have to stop. You're not allowed to talk here because it's a public university, and public universities means that it's private.
What?
Oh yeah, I got the
Public means private, and private means public, and down means up, and up means... Sounds like academics, actually.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
If you go on JSTOR, I'm sure you can get that actually empirically verified. You know, there's probably enough papers written on that upside-down nonsense. Kevin, let me ask you this. Are students sitting ducks on campuses?
You know, it's funny because the reason I asked Antonia how prevalent it was because I've never, you know, I came up in a time where, you know, there was no real concealed carry on campuses. I wasn't even sure that was something that actually existed, to be honest. I've heard about it a couple times, but yeah, it just seems like it's so, the culture has become so anti-carry that, you know, it just kind of like shocks me that students would be allowed to conceal carry on campus. Not that I'm against that. In fact, the opposite. I think they are, in some ways, sitting targets. If you look at the worst massacres and the worst acts of violence, where was it? Virginia Tech had one a few years ago. 30-something people got killed.
Horrible.
And you know, it almost seems like these areas, they just scream, you know, helpless. And you know, they even have them on their websites. I looked at a website a couple weeks ago on a story I was doing, and it said right in the front page, it said, "We do not allow firearms on campus." I mean, there could be no bigger like announcement to somebody who wants to do a massacre or something like that. Come on to the campus. We're not going to stop you. So yeah, actually, I think it's a great idea. I think there's so many more people that are going to use them defensively. For every 1 million, you know, for every million people that are going to use a gun defensively, there might be one who's going to try something. So
isn't that? But though, if guns are more prevalent on campus, isn't there going to be more problems? I mean, let's say, you know, a couple of kids are having a card game. Somebody cheats. Isn't someone going to get shot?
Well, yeah, it's back in 1860. Maybe.
Look, maybe. All right, but let me bring up this point. Maybe somebody, you know, is looking at the other guy's girlfriend the wrong way. He slaps him with a glove. There's a duel. Won't that increase the prevalences of duels?
You know, it's funny because I've looked at the numbers and just I can't speak to campus, but if you look at states that have more firearm ownership, they actually have lower rates of firearm violence, and not just violence, firearm violence. So I think you'll find that people who are actually firearm owners are more responsible in some ways than people who don't carry firearms, or you know, certainly the criminals.
Before you say anything, I'm going to rebut Grant. Grant owns weapons, so I'm going to rebut your claim that they're responsible right from the get-go. I know this guy. We've hung out many times. I can attest to his irresponsibility.
Well, he's the 1 in a million who shouldn't have weapons.
Yeah, precisely. And I've actually called his Philadelphia there, in Pennsylvania assembly member, and lobbied, say, you have to outlaw guns. You got this guy named Grant, lives in your city. Please, God, don't let him go anywhere with those weapons. But anyway, Grant, isn't it true that even without your irresponsibility, that your gun is going to automatically fire and kill several children at one time because you have hollow point bullets? And
well, I have this shotgun on my wall over here, and it's slowly starting to point itself at me. I really need to like maybe duck behind the table. Maybe I could do the show from like behind the couch.
Hey, Joe Biden said that's the gun you should probably have. I look at you. Yeah, you're a good citizen. You listen to your elected officials.
It might take my money and kill me. But yeah, no, I agree with campus carry. I carry a firearm every day. It's gotten to the point now where it's just like a cell phone or a wallet. It just comes along with me everywhere I go. Obviously within the bounds of the law. Now, that being said, I transferred to Temple University and completed my degree there. And Temple is in North Philadelphia, which is just
born and raised.
Pick a worse neighborhood to be in.
I had to do it. I had to do the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Sorry, go ahead.
It's that's West Philly though.
Oh, okay. Whatever.
It's in like the worst neighborhood you could be in, and of course it's a gun-free zone. Yet I get a text message alerts from them when I was there a few times a week. That's like student robbed at gunpoint, student like assaulted with knife. You know, and I'm just thinking, wow, this is not really working out for you that well, is it? So what I did was I carried on campus. You weren't supposed to. I did it anyways because honestly, parking my car and then walking to class was a risk. Like, I'm walking alone. It's nighttime. I take night classes. So I just said, screw your rules. If you catch me, that's unfortunate, but it's kind of worth the risk for me. And, you know, my carry weapon never crawled out during class and murdered everybody. If it did, I sure.
Not yet, until it does.
Not yet. It could grow legs.
It could. It already has a mind of its own. We all already know that. Before I start to play devil's advocate here, I want to ask Antonio one more question. I mean, for a woman on campus, and like what Grant said, Grant said that I get these, alerts all the time that somebody was robbed with a knife. I get a lot of alerts at my school of women who are assaulted or mugged in the parking structure. And I don't think a lot of these people, when they are, so somewhere with a knife, I heard that it was with a knife. I didn't hear anything about a gun, but wouldn't a young lady walking to her car in the dead of night want a weapon? I mean, why are we disarming them when they're at their most vulnerable? And wouldn't parents want that? I know if I had a daughter, I would want her to be armed.
Of course. I mean, I'm glad that Grant said something about that as a male because, I mean, I already know as a woman, I'm a grad student, and I've been walking, to my car at night, and I mean, Richardson is not as horrible as Philadelphia or anything when it comes to security and stuff.
Right.
But I get the same text of people being assaulted and sexually assaulted at least once a month. So in the area, at least, if not on my campus. So it's important for me as a woman to be able to have something to protect myself. Yeah, if he has a gun, certainly in that situation. But even if not, I mean, it's still something I'm probably not going to win in.
To that point, a lot of the gun statistics, and I'm sorry, one more question before I play devil's advocate against you three, and I'll probably win. Actually, I will definitely win because it's me, and you have Kevin on your team, so that's an automatic loss. But I mean, isn't it Bastiat's claim? It is what is seen and what is unseen. That a lot of these things that are thwarted by, say, a gal with a gun that you'll never hear about. She pulls her gun on a would-be attacker. He runs off. It's never reported. But we always hear, when somebody discharges a bullet, it's reported everywhere, and it's usually in the negative, and the media can spin it any way possible. I mean, isn't that you have a real PR problem? Certainly with people that don't pay attention necessarily to the news or critically think about conceal and carry and the benefits of one person having a weapon on them, and certainly the externalities that if they're protecting themselves, obviously they're protecting you as well, considering a lot of these these shooter scenarios.
Yeah, of course. I mean, a gun-free zone is a defense-free zone, period. And that benefits, I'm about to say the word collective, but I know it's taboo right now to say that. So it benefits.
It depends on context, really.
Context. Okay, yeah. Okay, context. In this context, it benefits everyone, women, men, children, who's ever in that area, to know that a criminal who's going to go against the law, regardless of the law, knows that someone can protect themselves. They're gonna think twice. Period. So it's gonna help anyone.
Okay, now I'm gonna play devil's advocate, and I'm gonna go after Kevin because he's the easiest target here. We have kids on campus. Some of them are 17 years old. They're not even old enough to buy cigarettes. You have some kids that are 18 to 21 years old. They're not even old enough to drink. And you want them to walk around on a campus where hormones are raging. They're a little bit confused about their surroundings. Maybe they're homesick. It's kind of hard to do, but these are actual arguments that somebody would make, and I'm trying not to laugh. But can you really trust these kids? I mean, they're out of their element for the first time in their lives. Don't you think that they could go off? I mean, you have incidents of Adderall on campus. Kids are taking all kinds of drugs. I mean, isn't this going to be a problem, Kevin? I mean, come on, be real.
First of all, we trust them in the military. And second of all, how is this any different from somebody who's older. I mean,
when there's drill sergeants, hold on a second, Grant. When there's drill sergeants on campus and that there's those rigid rules like they have in the military and discipline, I'd accept that argument, but there isn't. And they're trained in the military.
All right, but in every state that I could, actually it's federal law, you have to be 21 to own a handgun, and you have to be, conversely, 21 to carry. Actually, I think some states have a law where you have to be 25 to carry. So it wouldn't be 18 to 21-year-olds, it'd just be 21-year-olds. I like to think that maybe they're a little bit more responsible, I think.
Perhaps that's true, but wouldn't you say that if they cannot carry at 20, if they're restricted from carrying it till they're 21 or 25, isn't that a violation of their rights in the same manner? I mean, aren't you really fighting here to even lower that age if you're saying, oh, they should carry on campus? You can answer this one, Antonia, because Grant doesn't know how to speak English. Go ahead.
I mean, that's definitely a valid argument. I mean, 18 and 19-year-olds can definitely carry if they are active military right now. But other than that, apparently you have to get your rights again when you're 21, when you're not inebriated.
Right. So I don't mind. I don't mind. Okay. I don't like military members, and this isn't me talking again. I'm playing devil advocate. I don't like anybody carrying weapons. I don't like the idea of it. I don't like that some kid, military members are trained. They know how to use the weapon. I don't like the idea of some kid who's 18 years old, walks into a store, pays $500 for a 9mm Beretta, and starts carrying it around, showing it off on campus. You know what I mean? Some of these kids, there's drinking on campus. They're going to get drunk, start firing it in the air. And last time I heard, people die from falling bullets. How do you answer that claim? I mean, there's so many things that can go wrong here.
First of all, it's a felony if he's been showing it around in the beginning.
I can't just flail my weapon around? What do you mean? I could do it. I just pull it out. I show everybody in the cafeteria, hey, check out my Beretta. I'm awesome. Boom, boom, boom. Next thing you know, a couple of falling bullets hit some kid, and it's a big deal.
Right? I mean, next thing you know, some person's gonna come by.
Yeah, and then next thing you know, you get a really bad thunderstorm, somebody else gets struck by lightning, but it was really the bullet. Now we don't know, did they get hit by the lightning or was it the bullet? And you have a lot of these problems. Kevin, what's your problem?
I hope you get hit by lightning one day.
Yeah, I know, or a falling bullet, or...
Look, you have a better chance of falling in and getting hurt or dying in the bathtub than you do of getting shot on campus. I mean, this is what President Obama has said about terrorism. Look, you have a better, so do we really need these things on campus? I mean, let's look at the statistics. We don't need to have any sort of foreign policy measures against a whole giant terrorist organization because more people die in a bathtub. I would say the same of on-campus shootings.
Well, you're making an emotional argument. You're doing essentially what the left does.
I am not!
Yes, you are. All you're doing is really you're playing to emotion and as your devil's advocate role right now. And it's very effective for a lot of people. And a lot of people they don't see the statistics, they don't see the data. What they do see is a dead kid with a gun, and you're putting these visions in their head, and it's way more effective than going through dull statistics that most people won't even be able to interpret. We're very bad at risk analysis,
This is what we talk about on the show. Remember, we've talked about this, and we said we needed more. We needed that. I think to the point where we said we needed a more populist candidate, but obviously we meant with conservative principles, because once you become unhinged from conservative principles, you've really gone into the progressive mentality.
Oh, that's true.
Right, the progressive populist mentality. But Antonia, how do you remedy that? Look, I can go on and say, look, you don't care about the kids. You just want to kill kids. Liberals use the same argument across the board. It's always you want to hurt kids, you want to kill poor people, you don't care about safety. You know what? OSHA is important for safety on the job. Otherwise, capitalism would destroy lives, and kids would still be getting their fingers cut off. I mean, how do we change the message? How do you defeat those arguments?
Of course, and it all comes down to this a status argument where it says, the only people who should have guns is your campus police or your local police. Those are the only ones in the government. Those are the only ones that I can trust to have a gun and to protect me. I mean, yeah, so the best time that a campus police person is going to get to any type of situation is 6 minutes at best. But I mean, come on, fend for yourself.
Right. Unless I can carry a cop in my holster, I don't find that as a viable solution.
Would probably like that actually.
I would. If I could just get a little backpack where I could have a little ready, a cop at the ready there. with a full body cam and armed. That'd be cool on campus. But no, I mean, this is a huge problem, Kevin. We have talked about it. And Grant, you're all about your guns. But when it comes down to it, I will destroy you in an argument. I will say you don't care about kids. You have people that are drinking on campus. They're exposed to Adderall. These kids are taking, my test. They have Adderall. Now they got guns. Yosemite Sam here shooting them all over the place. I mean, what's your argument against that?
Man, I don't know. You make a lot of really good, valid points as devil's advocate. They're very well thought out. But I think the ultimate response to that is really that, rights of an individual aren't predicated on the behavior of other people. So we don't restrict free speech because someone might say something insane.
My free speech won't shoot your kid.
We don't restrict religious beliefs because people believe crazy things. They drink goat's blood and worship the devil. That's their thing. Whatever. It's their religious freedom. Now, if people don't like that, we don't restrict their religious rights across the board. And I think that's kind of, okay. I think what Antonia is arguing and what her organization is advocating for, I don't think she's advocating for perfection. I don't think any of us advocate for perfection. So there are always risks to things, and you taking whatever uppers and downers that you take throughout the day and shooting yourself, I'm okay with that happening to you, but I don't think it happened that often elsewhere.
There's also.
Go ahead, Kevin. Sorry.
There's also the issue that you mentioned at the beginning, Will, which is the seen versus the unseen. And I have seen some numbers that show that defensive use of weapons vastly exceeds criminal use of weapons. The numbers can get pretty outrageous. I've seen up to 7-to-1, 10-to-1. I'm not quite sure I believe the outrageous extremes, but at the very least, they'll show you that a weapon is not necessarily an offensive piece of equipment, and it's mostly used defensively. And a lot of this emotional argument, if it'll save one life, then we have to restrict firearms. Well, what if it saves one life to own a firearm? I mean, what if somebody breaks into your house intent upon killing you and your family, and you scare them away with a firearm? That saved one life, right? I mean, you can use the emotional argument in the reverse, but you don't see those stories as often. And we're used to hearing about the tragedy. Plus, you have the liberal media. It basically decides what goes on the air and what doesn't go on the air, and so you're going to hear a lot more of these negative stories than the positive ones.
Right, but people to that point, people that are affected by gun violence, they get together. You know what I mean? They form like an interest group. Those people the unseen, those people that use weapons to protect themselves that never go reported, they rarely ever get together to say, hey, yeah, I stopped a guy from raping me with a gun too. You know what I mean?
Familiar with the NRA?
I'm sorry?
You're not familiar with the NRA?
Yeah, the NRA is a bunch of right-wing kooks that want to kill children. But like you said, it's like going against labor unions. Here's this monopoly on labor. The way they make more money is by restricting the labor supply, and you never hear from those workers that have been denied a job or denied the opportunity at human capital. It's the same thing. So yeah, the right has a harder argument. I want to get back to Antonia and the part on women and guns, and it's like, aren't men and women the same? I mean, why should women be afraid? I mean, they're just as competent and proficient as men. I don't understand, what their problem is. They should be paid the same. Everything should be equal. How is it that they're in more danger on campus?
I don't even know where to start with that.
Because of people like you, Will, actually.
See, this is what your gender's fluid, and it's all a social construct. And you're just building up this social construct that men and women are different, and that they need a weapon to protect themselves.
Well, men need a weapon to protect themselves. I mean, that's just that argument is so ludicrous. It's just, it happens to be that it's more prevalent that men assault women sexually.
So
yeah. So
I have a hard time trying to. This is a really tough one for me. But I mean, I think it's society really doing. I think we need to change society. Like, men are taught that women are these objects when they're exactly the same. I think it's a societal problem, not one of guns. You see what I mean? That we need to tear down these constructs, this violent construct, and that guns just perpetuate it and amplify and exacerbate the problem. Wouldn't you agree with that?
No.
Okay, I see.
Moving on.
I want to move on. We did guns. We do guns an awful lot, and we could beat that drum a million times. I want to get into the current political affairs. You supported Rand Paul at one point, right, Antonia?
I did. I miss him still.
Okay. Currently in the race, are you now a Trump supporter?
Oh my God.
Like Grant is?
You come here and you insult me. Thank
Yeah, I know. But, I mean, who do you like in the race now? I mean, who's your guy?
Like, man, I really like anyone who makes sure Trump is not our nominee.
Okay.
I really like that.
But I mean, don't you stand for some? I mean, I see that argument, but my problems is with Trump on issues. But I know what I stand for, so I back up that candidate. Would you say you have somebody that aligns most with your principles that's running now?
I would say Ted Cruz is probably, when it comes to policy, that he's pretty, steadfast with.
Oh my God, Rand Paul is spinning in his grave right now.
His grave.
In his political grave?
Okay, I voted for Rand at the Texas primary. Okay, I got a lot of bad looks. I was one of the 2,000 people who voted for Rand at the primary. So.
Oh man, that's some dedication right there.
I was still randing before people were still randing.
So before I get to the guys, what's your take now? I mean, what do you think Trump's chances are of securing the nomination, and what do you think that means for the GOP as a whole? Could anybody hear me?
Oh, me?
Yes, you. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were saying the guys. Can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
Yeah. What do you see happening? What are the chances for Trump's nomination as of right now? Considered a contested convention, if there's going to be a contested convention, and what do you see that doing insofar as fracturing the Republican Party, or what it means overall for the GOP?
Yeah, I mean, I just gotta say, God bless Wisconsin yesterday, because it makes it a lot more likely that's going to happen, and that we're going to have a fight on our hands come July. And I think a lot of people are really excited about that. I know I'm excited about that, and it gives a little bit more hope. So I think it's going to be very likely that it happens that way, and I already plan to go to the convention. So if you don't see me after that, you know what happened.
All right. So a lot of people talk about this Trump phenomenon. It's like some people can't understand, why Trump exists, what's going on, and they say, oh, Trump's going to end the Republican Party. This is kind of like in the 1850s when the Whig Party fractured and you had the creation of the Republican Party. Kevin, I don't see a lot of people putting blame on the Republican Party itself and its disenfranchisement over the many years. They run on one thing, do another. What part of the blame does the GOP, particularly the establishment, take here in all of this?
Well, a lot of it, I think, at least according to the media. One of the biggest narratives out there right now is that this is a response to years and years of frustration among people who see that their candidates, they elect people, the Tea Party comes in, somebody like Rubio comes in and suddenly he's part of the establishment, or they're electing people to stand up to Barack Obama's his agenda, and they don't, they cave in, they're passing. Yeah, in a way they are, but I think politically they're trying to do what they can to save their own jobs, and in some ways it's worked. You see that they've gotten a lot more people elected, and they now have majorities in both houses. So in some ways it's worked, but I think this is the backlash year, and I think there is something to be said for that narrative, that people are frustrated that they haven't gotten more done, and maybe people don't quite understand that you kind of need a president to accomplish anything. You can't just accomplish things with two narrow majorities.
Okay, I'm going to go to Grant. I didn't really like your answer, Kevin, but it was nuanced. But Grant runs in a bit younger circles, like half a century younger, and you see what's going on with all this microaggression, gender neutral. I mean, literally, the argument I made to Antonia about guns is this gender neutral, construct society. Everything's bigoted. You had that Emory University thing where if you write Trump 2016, you're a racist. Everyone, again, we hear everyone's a racist. So this has been going on for, I don't know, Kevin. In the 90s, it didn't seem like the rhetoric was as strong. It seems like it's picked up really over the past 10 years. Would you agree? Like with the racist kind of, you're a bigot, everything turning into that? I don't think Kevin can hear me. Yeah. Would you agree?
I thought you were asking.
I am, but I'm gonna. This is my part of my question. I just
All
want to
right,
see.
now you got to redo it because I stopped listening when you.
Okay. Over the racist, bigoted stuff, these claims and this and the rhetoric has really picked up over the last 10 years. I didn't hear much of this in the 90s, not when Clinton was running, but I wasn't 75 years old at that time.
What does this have to do with the topic we're just discussing?
Can you answer the question? Has it picked up lately?
Of course it has.
Okay.
I mean,
So
you've seen it used as a wedge issue in a lot of ways, and politically used. It always gets used. It's been used for decades.
And the Republican Party has largely been apologetic over the years. They've never taken a stance. They've never taken a really firm stance on certain issues like certain market mechanisms. Obamacare, they were elected in 2010. You had the Tea Party sweep them in. They ran largely on defunding and repealing Obamacare. They did nothing. Same thing in 2014. In fact, they attacked Ted Cruz when he stood up.
What does that have to do with racial tension?
Hold on a second. They attacked Ted Cruz when he stood up for Obamacare. They attacked Rand Paul when he stood up against the drone thing. Isn't this really a backlash at a GOP that doesn't represent its voters anymore?
I have no idea where you're going with this. What are you talking about?
He's all over the place.
He's all over the place.
Seriously, you've been huffing again?
Okay.
Yeah.
The rhetoric.
Alzheimer's is
You're
kicking
not listening. The rhetoric that is picked up, and a GOP that does not represent its voters firmly enough, or take stands on issues firmly enough, or do what they have done to be voted in, while people in academia and on Main Street are calling people that are defending it racists and bigots 24/7. This is a backlash at a party that never represented them. And this is where the Trump phenomenon is coming from. That's what I'm talking about.
Let me just say one thing really quick.
It's picked up over the last 10 years. Go ahead.
Let me just say one thing before Grant kicks in here. I think they're in a sort of a difficult situation lately because you've got the younger generations that have different values from the older generations, and a lot of these are happening to the Republican Party where you have a split values. You definitely have people who are more from the Rand crowd that have a more libertarian streak, and the younger folks are definitely more liberal socially. And then you have the older folks who are still very conservative socially, and you have the politicians who are sort of caught in the middle, and they're trying to walk a fine line between the two. I mean, whether or not that's actually what's happening, I don't know, but that's definitely what I think is happening.
Right, but I have seen a lot of these younger Rand and Ron folks turn to Trump. I mean, I have seen that, and it has been somewhat prevalent and among the intellectual libertarians. Go ahead, Grant.
Look at Walter Block. He started Libertarians for Trump. I mean, it's surprising to me. I think the libertarians and the
Well, think of Walter Block, Grant. He's been labeled a racist many times.
Oh yeah, I think that it's even not that rhetoric has actually now extended into the right. Like even in the Republican base, because I've seen people say they support Trump.
I have seen it too.
Republicans call them racists.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, people who say they're conservatives are like, you're a racist. And I'm just like, okay.
That's why Trump does so well.
Right. And we joke about this all the time on Facebook, and I keep telling people this every time that some left-wing media site publishes an article saying like white anger, hateful white people and racist white people, and he gets 50,000 more supporters right out of the gate.
He does.
It bounces right off him. He doesn't care. Keep doing it. Keep doing it. And I think that kind of momentum in a Trump-Hillary scenario would win Trump the election. Like if they just kept that same beating that dead horse, I think Trump would win.
I think people are tired of it, though.
Go ahead, Antonia.
Sorry, I was going to say that people are just tired of it. I mean, I used to be a Democrat, and it was so disempowering because every single thing had to do with racism or sexism or, I mean, just use those words and it stops conversations immediately. Even if you're black. I mean, even if you're a black woman, I mean, you just have to constantly bring that up. It's going to stop the conversation. And so I talked to other people about this when the riots went out in Chicago about Trump being there and speaking. I think it's just as much of the SJW, social justice warrior, everything's a racist, everything's sexist people on the left who were just as much responsible for the riots as the Trump people, because they started this or have perpetuated this anger amongst people because they kind of have to feel like they are racist if they have any type of conservative values whatsoever.
Mm-hmm. No, you're right.
I actually agree with you completely on the social justice warriors contributing to the violence there. And actually, I think in a lot of ways, they're more violent than Trump supporters because what they want to take it a step further and say this guy should be banned from making speeches. He should have, the ex-mayor of Philadelphia said that Philly should ban Trump from ever visiting the city because he said word for word that we don't want racists in our city. Okay, that's like you just violated every constitutional amendment in the freaking book. And in that regard, they're really they want to restrict everyone's rights just because one guy is like kind of offensive to them.
Well, how are you gonna know that someone's racist if you don't let them speak? That's the whole thing, right?
Well, you're Antonio. You're in academia. You go to campuses. I mean, I took one class that was predicated on white racism, that white people are racist because of their skin color, and that they steal the labor of minority classes, and this is what I learned. This is literally and that the United States of America, to become American means to become white, and it means to lose your identity. And it was encouraging people like the Chicano movement that Mexicans should never assimilate into American culture because it means the white people are stealing your identity. And this is what kids are getting exposed to on campuses. And I think that there's a backlash at a lot of this academic or intellectual movement. You see hints of it, in the media. Would you agree that some of this stuff is just an overall backlash? These people aren't looking at the nuance of constitutional principles. They're angry, and they see Trump as he's this anti-PC movement. He's pissing off libs, and they're loving it. Would you agree? And that's all that they're basing their vote on. I think it's stupid, but I understand it.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a white student and you're hearing that constantly, you probably already heard it in grade school and in secondary school anyways. It's not the first time, to be honest. Mm-hmm. You probably heard that if you're a white person, you are responsible for all the evil in the world. I actually had a teacher in high school call white people, he was a white person, call white people white devils.
Oh, yeah.
Come on.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, on the flip side of the coin, if you're a black person, if you're a minority, you're constantly in this perpetual state of, well, I'm just a second-class citizen. I mean, I can't really help myself get out of anything. I mean, everything is, there's so much institutional racism. Right. Why should I even try? Why should I even, I'm just going to have to be a second-class citizen anyway. So it doesn't help either side. In fact, it just brings anger, and it brings this cycle of disempowered thinking for minorities. So you're losing either way.
And I saw Kevin shaking his head earlier. I'm sorry, getting feedback. Is anyone else?
How dare you disagree with me?
Is anyone getting feedback?
Yeah. I was going to say, with what you just said, I'm really surprised that Trump is doing so well. I mean, I just can't. I mean, wow.
Yeah. No, you're right. And Kevin, you were shaking your head when Grant said that Trump would have a good opportunity of winning. I don't think that this is a party issue. I think that there are capitalist Democrats, particularly in the Rust Belt, Democrats that have been lifelong union members that Trump appeals to, and that they've been disenfranchised by a party that's continually moved left. This is not Bill Clinton's party. This is not the party of JFK. This is Barack Obama's party that he's moved considerably to the left. And this is where Clinton's problem's coming in, is that she's running like it's Clinton's party. That's where she's having a huge problem. This is Barack Obama's party of postmodernism, of moral relativism, of redistribution of wealth, rich people are evil, the banks are evil. I mean, that's Mussolini's message. We got to go after the bankers. Don't you think that if in a general Trump would have a good chance of winning?
No, maybe not on that issue, but I mean, if you want to change the subjects, I'll tell you why Trump's not going to win. I'll tell you why Republicans aren't going to win.
Go ahead.
Because, well, first of all, and this is coming out in my piece, what's happened here is there's been a bit of a shift in terms of the polls, and it looks like Trump has had a fall off. The last 3 states he's underperformed in, and because of that, I think we're going to go into the election with Trump and Cruz, or into the convention with Trump and Cruz really closer than a lot of people thought, and maybe within 100 or so delegates of each other. Now, the reason that changes everything is because there are more than 200 unbound delegates that are at the convention, and it's going to really tip I think, in my opinion, it's going to tip the election to Cruz, because I don't think Trump's going to be able to get. He's certainly, I don't think, going to be able to get Rubio's. If Rubio releases his delegates before the first vote, before the first ballot, I think that they end up going with Cruz. I think they're much closer in ideology, of course, than with Trump. So I think you're going to basically see a possibility of Cruz winning, even maybe on the first ballot. I no longer think that Trump is inevitable. That said, no matter who wins, Trump or Cruz, we have a third-party candidate situation. Even without a third-party candidate, Trump supporters are not going to fall behind a Cruz. They're not going to go behind any other candidate other than Trump. And you have 30% of Republicans saying they will not vote for Trump. So essentially, no matter what happens, it's like we have a third-party candidate in the election this year, and it's going to divide the electorate, the Republican electorate, and it's almost guaranteed at this point that Hillary, unless at the last minute she ends up getting indicted, is going to be the next president. And that's what I've basically concluded.
Let me challenge you there. One, Hillary's never going to get indicted. Two, aren't primaries always contentious that one side says, I'm never going to vote for the other guy? I mean, we've heard this in 2008 primarily with Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama. You hear it every second.
You just said it yourself. These are people that are they've been disenfranchised. They're very upset. They're not part of the electorate. They're not part of the usual Republican base. And these are people who are really, they're mad. They're mad as hell, and they don't want to vote for anybody but Trump.
And they're Democrats that have moved over to the Republican Party just to vote in the primary.
Right. Or they've stayed in the Democrat Party and voted in open primaries. So there is a huge influx and a larger percentage of Republicans voting, and a lot of that is Trump support coming from independents and Democrats. Though Cruz has, when there has been a large turnout, Cruz has won sometimes too. There is a large conservative turnout, and you said, I think you said that Trump's had a bad couple of weeks, and it's affected him, with the delegate count. Part of that is his abortion comments. He lost the evangelical vote in Wisconsin finally. Some of these people may be turning on him. They're tired of his sophomoric rhetoric, certainly on abortion.
And what he said about nuclear weapons, he doesn't mind if Korea and Saudi Arabia and Japan become nuclear nations. And of course, what he said about Cruz's wife, I mean, that's got to turn off a lot of women.
Any question? I mean, look, you have the what was it? The Inquirer, right? Questioned Cruz's fidelity, ran a story without a solid source. And here's the guy. What's his name? I think it's Gary Pecker. He couldn't really make that up. He's friends with Trump. He's endorsed Trump. I mean, there's a lot of things going on here. He tweeted that picture of his wife. I mean, even for me, I have a good sense of humor, but this stuff's just gone. It's just got out of control. I don't understand it. But you're right, Antonio. There is a lot of people. There are a lot of Democrats and independents voting in this primary. Do you think it's going to be a problem at a convention if he goes in with a plurality of delegates and he comes out? He loses, like Kevin said, on a first ballot or most definitely a second ballot. I want to remind people, 5% of the first ballot delegates are unbound. I think it's 49 or 59% on the second ballot are unbound, and 76% on the third ballot are unbound. So it is possible. I mean, I don't think Trump wins a second ballot, but do you think there'd be a problem with Trump supporters? Like Trump has said there'll be a revolt, riots in the streets if he doesn't win. Would you agree with that?
Well, I mean, that's the thing. There's a difference between a voter and a delegate. And a delegate is usually a lot more sophisticated, knows the process. And that's what they're saying, that Cruz is going to win the delegate game because most of the people who are going to be delegates to the National Convention probably are going to, even if they say they're Trump people, kind of can hide and say that they're actually a Cruz person when it comes to it. So that's where we're going to have that shock factor, because we're not going to know really who's for one candidate or another until that second or third round comes to place.
Okay, that's a good point. Grant, do you think it's a problem at a contested convention? It doesn't look like. With the victory in Wisconsin, Cruz took 36 of the delegates. Trump took 6. His ground game is a lot better in convincing delegates to switch to him. I'm sure he's recruiting. He's already trying to recruit some of the Rubio delegates. He's in California here recruiting delegates. He's all over getting delegates. I mean, Trump had no idea of even how the rules worked. I mean, this is how he's coming in. It doesn't seem like, and it's beginning to look like he wasn't even serious when he entered the race. I mean, here's a guy that doesn't know how the primary process works, which is fascinating. But do you think there'll be a problem amongst the Republican Party if, Cruz comes out on a first ballot?
Yeah, I think that my hope is that Cruz does come out on top in all this. I think that if the way Trump is continuing his campaign, and you're right, I think he's kind of falling off. He's losing his momentum. That he's not going to be able to bounce back by come convention time, and then at that point, I think Cruz will probably take it from him. And what you were saying earlier, he didn't even know the process. He ran, just kind of did it, just not very seriously. He ran for president. I mean, who knows? Maybe the whole time the plot was that he would run so Hillary Clinton would become president.
I mean,
which wouldn't surprise me, to be perfectly honest.
Kevin, we're talking that Trump right now has lost momentum. What happens in New York? I mean, it looks like from the polls as of now. I mean, the polls that were taken before Cruz's Wisconsin win, Cruz is just really starting to rev up his game there. I think the primaries there is in 2 weeks, but he has a 52% to 18% lead on Cruz as of now. Do you think that will spur Trump's momentum?
Well, it all depends. It sounds like a big lead, but actually that's a 2% margin between winner take all and a more proportional allocation of the delegates. I think it's a 50% threshold in New York. Mm-hmm. You get above that and you get all the delegates, and that would be potentially a game changer. Although I'm not sure if the experts have already given Trump New York in the entire delegate count. The ones I've seen have not. They've basically given him a proportional victory.
Yeah, but if Kasich's at 22% there, and as of now Trump's at 52%. I don't see him getting over 50% at the time the vote comes. Certainly with those guys campaigning there.
Yeah, like Grant said, and like I alluded to earlier, and we were talking about, he's had a bad couple of weeks, and I don't see his numbers getting better. He's the type of guy who he did have a bit of a ceiling on support. And now that he's made some gaffes that really seem to stuck to him, he doesn't have that Teflon anymore. I think there's more of a downside. And in New York, that's going to kill him. If he gets 45% or something, if other candidates get delegates in New York, I mean, even right now, the way it is, it's looking harder and harder to come up with a scenario, in my mind, in which Trump is the nominee. I think he's got to get to 1237. And if he doesn't get to 1237, like Grant just said, that Cruz has a much better chance of picking up the delegates on a second ballot, maybe even on the first ballot.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you have a lot of these claims now, Grant, of they want to change the rules. That Trump said today, I don't like rules. What are these rules? Now they have these rules. These rules have been in place, with the exception of Rule 40, since Abraham Lincoln won the nomination on a third ballot in 1860. So is he saying that the rules were good enough for Abraham Lincoln, they were good enough for Ronald Reagan in '76 when he lost to Ford on a second ballot? Is he saying that these rules are somehow unfair all of a sudden because Donald Trump is running?
Well, I think what it is that rules don't make America great again. We need to change things, and things we need to change are the rules so we can make America great again.
You're right. Rules are the impediment.
All right, we're going to do it. We're going to change the rules.
We're going to build a wall around those rules and make the rule makers pay for it. I mean, am I right, Antonia? I mean,
policies, right?
Mm-hmm. I'd see, like Kevin said, I see Trump has alienated a lot of the delegates. He hasn't worked to recruit the delegates, and if he doesn't have the 1237 necessary, I just don't see him getting the nomination. I do see a problem then with parts of the Republican Party. I don't think it will be as bad as Cruz is the nominee, but if you get into the third and fourth ballots and then they start, Kasich does well, or they throw somebody else's name in the hat, then I see a huge problem. I would say that's highly unlikely, but I don't know what this establishment GOP. I mean, they've really done a number to this party, and I don't like when people blame Trump for it. It's not he didn't do it. The GOP did it. I mean, would you agree? I mean, the Rule 40B was instituted to make sure that Ron Paul wouldn't get, and conservatives, and Ron Paul wouldn't get the nomination. So I mean, Who is to blame here? Who would you blame? Antonia?
Man, who would I blame? I mean, I'm pretty new to all of the Republican side since I voted for Obama last time.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I told you guys that. Gosh.
I just got cancer.
In the show, there's nothing to see here.
I'm just kidding. There's a lot of that, but that's good. Hey, That's good. What made you switch over? Was it Ron Paul?
No, well, I guess in the end, but I mean, really, it's the fiscal issues. I was, about to graduate, and I realized, I voted for Obama, but these policies don't look like they're going to be sustainable, and I can't find a job.
Mm-hmm.
So it made me really think about the fiscal policies and the issues and where the state of America is right now, and that's why I ended up being a Rand Paul fan, because he puts that first. He's a fiscal conservative first, the way the Tea Party should be, and unfortunately is not so much right now, but that's where it was founded upon, is fiscal issues. And a lot of my generation, that's important to them. Unfortunately, we're still not seeing it. We're still not seeing it amongst Republicans still, and something's going to have to change. Hopefully it's our generation, but we'll see.
No, you're right about the Tea Party. I mean, again, I said they swept into Congress in 2010, never really got what they wanted. In 2014, they swept in the Senate, and they kind of broke up after that. It was kind of, this seems futile here. Like you said, the Tea Party's still around. There's just lost a lot of enthusiasm. It was like, man, we got them into Congress, we got them in the Senate, things are going to change. And then they realized, I think it was Cruz that got on the Senate floor and said, Mitch McConnell's governing no different than Harry Reid did. You know what I mean? That was Ted Cruz 7-8 months ago, and he's absolutely right. The Senate has governed in the same manner that Harry Reid largely has. So, I mean, this is where the backlash is. Grant, I asked Kevin this question earlier, and I asked Antonia the same question. Is it the GOP's fault here? I mean, is Trump a byproduct of a feckless and inept GOP establishment?
I think it's your fault, to be perfectly honest.
Well, yeah, obviously.
Yeah.
I'm a white male.
Yeah, angry white male.
Yeah, duh.
Yeah. No, I think it's definitely the establishment's fault. I mean, they ushered in Paul Ryan as a big party leader, and he hasn't at all lived up to expectations. And you look at how Boehner was before, and that was even worse. Maybe definitely not better. And then McConnell, he's very bad. Lindsey Graham, same thing.
He's very bad.
Yeah, he's very bad. I hate Mitch McConnell. They have not been conservative at all, and they have signed on to just about every liberal progressive thing Obama has put on the floor or put out there. They haven't really openly opposed any of the left-wing policies that have come out from the Democratic Party, if not just signed on to them completely. So, yeah, of course people are pissed off at the GOP, and I mean, most Trump supporters that I talk to, that's their number one reason for voting for Trump, is that they just hate all the other politicians, right?
No, you're right. And Kevin, the best part about Trump is he holds a lot of leftist positions. I mean, if you look at him throughout his life, he supported leftists. His view is an eminent domain, giving land back to the states that are rightfully belong to the states. He's against the things he said about health care. He never mentions capitalism or free market economics. He never mentions the Constitution or liberty.
He said the other day, he literally said the other day, he loves the free market except for free trade.
Yeah.
He loves free trade except he doesn't want it to have free trade.
Right. So, I mean, here's a guy with high tariffs. He attacks Ted Cruz specifically, and he did this to Rand Paul from the left. It seems that he crosses party lines. To me, he's not, here's a guy that's, I'm anti-establishment. And then, people think that means that, he's some sort of a conservative or he's anti-establishment, meaning that, like, finally he'll represent us. But it seems like he's just a Jeb Bush on steroids. That seems to be more, have a bit of a more acerbic rhetoric. What do you think?
He's a populist. We've discussed this before. He's a populist. A lot of his platform positions are left, but they're populist left. They're the anti-trade issue has become a populist issue, and you actually see a lot of Republicans these days saying they're against trade and they want more tariffs and so forth. And so I'm not necessarily sure he's taking the issues because they're left or because they're right. He's taking them because people are responding to them. He's a populist, just like in the way Bernie Sanders is. And I think it's the most dangerous type of politician because they really don't care about the results of their policies as long as it gets them votes. That's basically the definition of populism, is you take the most popular policies and you you believe you reinforce them and you get elected. And I think that's what he is, left and right.
One more question. Go ahead, Antonio. I'm sorry.
I was going to say the ironic thing is that, yeah, he's targeting, populist side, but like his trade policies, it's going to affect that side the most, So it's a sad thing because I understand that people want something different and they're angry. And this election, I can see how that, trajectory can happen pretty easily, being apathetic and being angry. But and that's probably why his momentum has gone down recently, because the one thing that people can say is that he shakes things up and that he's confident in his answers. And, I don't want to be a little bit biased or kind of stereotype New Yorkers or anything. But, I mean, his last performance last week with the abortion thing, he's constantly changing his issues and backtracking. Doesn't seem like the New Yorkers I know would like that temperament. And so if you don't have that one thing that made you popular, you're looking at your policies and you're like, man, who is this guy?
Yeah, I agree. I don't like that I'm originally from New York. My folks aren't voting for Trump. They don't like him. My dad's never liked him. My mom doesn't, so I know they're not. So that's pretty good. And I also try to convince my friends to not vote for him, but none of my friends would. They're all really far left. But I want to get back to you, Kevin, before we get to winners and losers. Rhetorically, Trump is a populist. That there's little doubt about that. But I want to get your point on how would he govern practically when he gets in? Wouldn't he not govern the same as a Hillary Clinton or a Jeb Bush?
Yeah, well, there's, because you never know
It's hard to stipulate, yes.
It's hard to understand what this guy's going to end up doing. But so I look back at his career, and he's a corporatist. I mean, he made tons of deals with government, and like you mentioned before, he's used eminent domain before, and he's greased, he's put a lot of money in a lot of politicians' pockets, and I think he's gonna govern the same way, just from the other side of the table. And I think
a pragmatic governance, that he doesn't really have principles.
Yeah,
he just thinks that it's a win if the polls say it's a win and if people like me.
Right, and he's going to build his empire, and he's going to put in place policies that help him and his friends. I mean, he's a corporatist, and I think that the people that buy this notion that he's going to come in and because he knows how the system works, he's going to tear the system down. It's just ludicrous.
Well, he's a billionaire, you see, and then because he's a billionaire, that means George Soros can also run the country.
That's right. I mean,
no, you're right.
The lottery winner who got $1 billion in the Powerball should be able to do it too.
You're right. Okay, so I'm going to get to winners and losers. I'm going to start with Grant, and I will get to Antonia last to give her a minute, and just in case she named Grant as a loser, just to pick Kevin instead. You can work between those two and figure it out. But Grant, go ahead. Give me your winners and losers of the week.
My winner of the week is Villanova for winning the March Madness Final Four. On the Saturday night for the Oklahoma game, I actually went to Villanova because they're right down the street for me.
Oh, they're in Pennsylvania? I didn't know that. I thought they were in New York.
Well, I know that you're really bad at knowing things, so I just wanted to clarify that. And
you're from Florida, Jacksonville.
There was a mini riot. It was a good time.
So you're originally from the South, though, right?
Yeah, I don't care about Villanova basketball. It's just fun partying with them.
Oh man.
Yeah.
All right. So who's your winner? I mean, your loser?
No, don't worry. My loser of the week. I don't have one, so it's gonna be Will Riccadella.
All right. I knew that was coming.
Because he's from New York, and New York's gonna probably support Hillary in the primary, and I'm sure he'll fly back home to vote for her.
I don't know. Bernie's closing the gap here, so we'll see. Kevin,
wouldn't you?
I would. Kevin, your winners and losers.
All right. Well, the loser is, like we talked about a lot, I think Trump's had an awful couple of weeks, and I think with Wisconsin happening the way it did, it could be a portent of bad things to come. So he definitely has had the toughest couple of weeks. And the winner is the UConn women's basketball team. Screw you, Villanova. They just won their 11th national title. It's their 6th undefeated season and their 4th national championship in a row. So there's like 3 or 4 seniors on that team that have never lost the national championship in their
proud
career.
To say that more people watched this show than watched that game.
Not in Connecticut where I live.
Yeah, maybe, but
overall. We shouldn't have men's and women's basketball. It should just be all one.
That's what I mean. You think that's funny? There are people on my campus that think that it's sexist to have only in male sports, and I said, well, I'm sure they would sign a woman if she could add, to the if she could add to the team, and then I was called a sexist for that. So it's
Can't
pretty
we
amazing.
just applaud the UConn women's basketball team?
No,
Your inane babble.
no, unless it's the UConn. Never mind. Yes, we can absolutely.
All right, there we go.
Did you have a loser?
I already said Trump.
Oh, Trump's your loser. All right, Antonia, let's hear it.
Man, I was gonna very original me, but I was definitely gonna use Trump as a loser just because he lost Wisconsin. But so what can I use it?
Absolutely. I mean, he is the loser here. He lost, and he was a sore loser. He cried about it, and his official statement had Lyin, Lyin apostrophe Ted Cruz, and they actually accused him of a felony in there. So that's how petty and foolish Donald Trump's campaign is. I think it's a joke. I don't think he wants. I think he's like trying to sabotage himself. So yes, he's a huge loser.
All right, awesome. And then the winner is a whole state, and that's Georgia for getting campus carry. So,
oh,
go Georgia.
There you go. Yeah, pretty good. My winners and losers of the week. I'm gonna have to go with loser Donald Trump. Like I said, that statement was fascinating. I've seldom seen something as stupid. And my winner is going to have to be the New York Mets, because they won a game this week against the Kansas City Royals, and they actually got a couple of hits. And that was also just as fascinating. I've never seen anything like it, that they actually won a game for once, and I'm really proud. They will probably be in last place in another couple of months, but I will relish in the fact that they finally won a game.
I thought they folded. I didn't even know they were still around.
I thought the whole Bernie Madoff thing, they should have folded. Really, they are just a major disappointment, and that never changes. But I want to thank Antonia Okafor for coming on. Please go to concealedcampus.org if you want to donate a ton of money. If you want to find out what Antonia is doing or what their next project is, you can look there. Also, please visit, Unbiased America. We have a great Facebook page with a ton of information. It's really great. When I post, it's not so great when Kevin posts. Actually, in reality, it's more the other way around. Also, visit The Modern Libertarian and We Are Capitalists. And don't forget to look at Grant's piece tomorrow on Pan Am. Can you say where they can find that?
Yeah, I'll have it posted on We Are Capitalists.
Okay.
And Modern Libertarian. Very
good. So follow We Are Capitalists too, and Being Classically Liberal. And Matt Palumbo will be back one of these days when he's out of his preteen rebel phase. But thanks for watching, and we will see you next week. Next week we have James Swanson on, who is a Lincoln historian and scholar, and we will defeat a lot of the anti-Lincoln myths, a lot of the Civil War myths that you hear, particularly from Tom DiLorenzo. We will put everything into context for you. Thank you for watching, and we hope to see you next week. And Antonio, stay on, and we'll talk after the show.
Okay.
All right.